This week, we're going to talk about how you communicate with your stakeholders. Hi, I'm Charlie, your online business manager. In the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the different types of systems you can use to communicate with your stakeholders. And I'm going back to using that term stakeholders. Notice a stakeholder is anyone who has an interest in your business. They may be a customer or a client. They are generally one of your biggest stakeholders. They may be a business partner. They may be a supplier or a provider of services to you. But they're people who, if you look, or companies, if you look at it as a whole of life thing and a holistic thing, they are the things that make your business successful. With or without them. Without them, your business won't work. With them, your business should work. So stakeholders, and I'm going to use that term as much as I can throughout this topic. So we've spoken about the types of systems that we use to communicate with our stakeholders. What we haven't spoken about is how we communicate with them. There's a couple of things that we need to think about, and one is the general tone and atmosphere we want to set when we are communicating with our stakeholders. Do we want it to be a purely formal, official type tone, or do you want it to be slightly more relaxed and friendly? Do you not want to have any professionalism in it at all? And I'm not going to say that that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just something that you need to think about is, what is your natural communication style? My natural communication style, I think, is it's not exactly relaxed, but it's not all hoity-toity. I'm very official and I'm very process driven, and I'm not all stiff about it. I like to talk to people. I like to get to know a little bit about people before I sort of get into that, well, I think you should do this. And so I think my style is a little bit more relaxed than someone else's might be. I can, however, when needed, become very formal and very official. And we don't really want to talk about the times that I have to do that. But I'm sure you can get a few ideas of when you might want to be that little bit more strict in how you're saying things. So have a think about what your natural communication style is and practice it, refine it, work out how you can pull in all the business aspects that you need, making sure that you hit all of the things in terms of, this is the deliverable, this is how much I'm going to do it for, this is what I expect of you, this is what you can expect of me, and refine that into your own personal communication style. I don't want to sort of go down into that because I'm not a communications coach. I'm not someone who's done training people to do that. I've done a lot of training in communications throughout my life. I started as a field tech, and I was taught how to talk to people about finding out what their problems were when I went out on site, and then troubleshooting and making the client feel, or the client in this case, feel like I knew what I was doing. I've done client relationship management, which has really been sitting between the support team and the sales team and the client, and getting them the communications that they need from my teams into the client, and then getting the client's communication back into my teams. So I've learned across my life how to do various things, but it's a very personal thing for me. So I don't really want to go into how it might work for you. I'm happy to have a chat about a couple of things, but I'm not really a coach to coach you to do that. What I am good at, though, is giving you some thoughts about how you as a business can make sure your clients and your stakeholders feel like you care about them. Now, one of my biggest bugbears when I'm working with a supplier is a lack of communication. So I'll put in a ticket or I'll put in a request and I don't get an answer back. That's the first thing that I really, really dislike. Now, I'm not going to go, customers do that as well, but that's a slightly different story for me. When I do it with a supplier, particularly someone I'm paying money to, I want to know that you have my problem to begin with. So one of the things that we try to do, and I try to do, and I'm not perfect at it, which is why I've got systems in place to try and mitigate some of that, is send out a, hi, Thank you so much for contacting us. We have your request. We will be in touch in X number of hours, days, weeks, years. I wouldn't recommend the weeks and years, but it can happen. But just that little note back saying, yes, we have your communication. That way I know that my email hasn't ended up in spam, ended up in the ether, is just being ignored. I know that you've got it, and I can say, okay, I can put that on hold and I'm going to follow this up. They've said it's going to take about 3 days to give me an answer. I'll give them 5, and then I'll go back in 5 days and just prompt them and say, is there an answer on this yet? How are we going? Have you had a chance to look at it? So I'm getting an expectation set of me by my supplier as to when I should expect to see something, and I can set my schedules around that. That also then means I can tell my clients that, yes, this is in hand. It's going to take a couple of days to get an answer to. I will be back in touch with you in 5 to, if I get a 2 to 3 day expected response time, I'll tell my clients 3 or 4 to 5 days, 6 days. And I'll give them, I'm expecting an answer back in this. I should be able to get back to you in this time. So I'm then setting expectations with my clients, and I'm doing it proactively. They shouldn't. I say they don't. I don't want to use absolutes here because, as I said, I'm not perfect at this. But we set expectations all the way through, and by setting those expectations, people can set their own schedules and their own work around that. The other thing about setting an expectation is that you can then delight someone. And I use that term because I really, really like it. You're going to delight someone by getting back to them quicker. Now, I'm not saying you should pad your times to make it seem like you're doing better than you are. But if you can get back to someone quicker and you've set the expectation that it's 2 to 3 days and you get back to them within the day with an answer, they're going to be really, really happy with that, typically, because you've exceeded their expectation. So that's one thing that really bugs me when we're talking about communications is the lack of communication that occurs. And that's first of all with the initial contact. Then let's get into an ongoing thing. Not knowing where we're at with a process or a project or a problem or something that we're working on. So let's say that someone said to me, we're going to get back to you in 3 to 5 days, and they can't find the answer, or they've been waylaid, or they've had a whole heap of problems come in. I like it when I get the answer, when I get the communication back. Hello, just letting you know, we haven't forgotten about you. We are experiencing a high level of queries at this point in time. We're probably going to be another day or so before we can get you an answer, or we are proactively investigating this and we're having trouble working it out, or not even having trouble. Again, you've got to be careful with that language there. It's not having trouble. We are investigating your problem. We still don't have an answer on it. We will get back to you in 24 hours, 48 hours, 3 days, whatever. Again, I know they haven't forgotten me. They say they're working on my problem, and I'm going to believe that they're working on my problem. Now, they may not be working on my problem 100% of the time, and I get that. Sometimes you can't do that. So that's the second part of the problem, is be proactive. Don't just take in something and have it sitting on your desk and say, yeah, I'll get to that, and I told you I'd get to it, and then leave it for a week and then come back and say, oh, yeah, sorry, I got delayed. And again, I'm not perfect with this, and I know a number of you who are my clients and who have worked with me will say, but Charlie, you've done that to us. Yes, I have, and I'm very, very sorry I have. It is a personal failing, and it is a thing that doesn't delight me in the way I've responded and behaved with that particular thing. But it's something that I work on, and it's something that I really try hard not to do. So we've got being proactive, both in, first of all, acknowledging that you've got communication in that you need to answer. Now, that might be you get an email in It might be that someone's called you, might be that someone's texted you, it might be someone's that instant messaged you. In all of those, a quick communicate back to say, we have your message is great. One of the things I don't like about instant messaging, particularly when you're looking at some of the live chats and stuff, is the bot responses. Now, I'm not saying that I hate them and I won't use them, but it's real easy to have them set up when someone sends you a message and says, hi, I've got a problem. You say, hey, we've got your thing. We'll be back to you in 3 or 4 days. That's not a personal response. It's a canned response. And it's really easy for you to overlook that's come in. Now, I think you can use the bot responses, the AI type responses, bot responses, to say to them, yep, we've seen this has come in, but I also think you need a little bit more personal communication, sometime very close after that request has come in or that message has come in to say, yes, a person has seen this. We work because we like working with the people that we're working with, not the systems they're working with. The systems are great and that we know that they help us, but ultimately it's because we're working with the people within the system. And just having a system send out automated responses, not so great. And you get really good at picking when it's an automated response and going, I just don't know if actually anyone is looking at this or if this is just one of those scheduled things that goes out. And so a little bit of personal communication in there is really helpful as well. So we've got the setting the expectation and we've got managing the expectation of the communication. That's the two biggest things that I think you can ever do when you're working in a business. You set that expectation. Here's what you can expect from me. I will be back to you within 2 or 3 days. That product should be here or on your doorstep within a week. Managing the expectation. Okay, I'm 2 days into my 2 to 3 day time frame. We're having a little bit of an issue to determining what the issue is or getting an answer for you. Let's go back and say, hi, yep, we're letting you know we're still working on this. We're waiting on a response. This is where we're at. We will be back to you within Y number of days, whatever that is for you, whatever that time frame is for you. That's managing the expectation. They're the basics. The next thing that we need to consider is tailoring our responses for the audience. I'm a tech. I quite often will get, it isn't working. This system isn't working. And I'll look at that and I'll go, I wonder how it isn't working. And I wonder what isn't working. For example, my website isn't working. So that to me would say that when you go to the website's not coming up at all. That's not what it means for everyone else. And this is a lesson that I've had to learn. Oh, sorry, that's not a lesson. Sorry, that is not necessarily what it means for everyone else. And this is a lesson that I've had to learn as a tech and as a business person, is not filtering someone else's request, problem through my own perceptions. I need to be able to take my perceptions, step aside from them and say, can you give me more information? So generally the first thing I get is my website's not working. So I go and check it and it's there, it's working. I can get to it. I can click through, I can send you contact forms. So rather than going back and saying, yes, it is, what I can do is say, hi, thank you so much for letting me know that your website's not working. Could I get some more information from you, please? What is happening that says to you this isn't working? Can you give me an example of what's going on? So I'm trying to get from you as the person I'm communicating with your perception of the issue, not my perception. Now, that becomes a little more difficult when it's like, well, it's just not working. Okay, so you're using your phone. Are you using your computer? Is the website displaying? Is what's happening? And then you get down to some of these things can't be explained in words. It's really hard to say this is what's going on. Take a screenshot of what's going on. If you're on your mobile phone and this is what I'll ask someone, could you give me a screenshot of what's going on? Would you mind doing a screen capture, a video of what's going on and sending that to me so I can see? How about we screen share and you can show me what is happening for you? As soon as I get to those sorts of points with people, we get all sorts of information and they don't feel like, well, I hope you don't feel like I'm talking down to you by saying, well, I need all this information. I hope, what people feel when they come to me and I start to get down to these sorts of points is that I really care about the issue. I believe that you're having a problem. I just can't see it, or I'm not experiencing the same thing you are. So it's how you communicate and how you communicate with your audience. Now, how I communicate with a business person who has very little technical expertise or doesn't really like the technical side of things is very, very different to how I communicate with my coders and my technicians and my suppliers. When I talk to my customers, the ones that don't like being technical, I use a lot of gentle language, a lot of broad language. I don't tend to use technical terms. I don't tend to say, well, that would be because the TCP port isn't connecting and blah, blah, blah. It'll be like, okay, so we're having a problem and this device isn't connecting here. When I'm talking with my techs though, and my suppliers, I have to be very formal, well, not formal, but much more structured in my communication. I need to give them the step by step, the step through of what I've done, the process I've been through in the testing, what my results are, whether I'm getting, whether I've done network traces and got, the TCP port is connecting on this port, but I'm not getting a response back from this device. But I have to, as the business owner and as the communicator within my business, tailor my communications to my target audience. It's something that we all need to do, and some of us do it better than others, and some of us are still learning. I'm one of the ones that is still learning. Even after all these years, I go, oh, I could have done that so much better. So we've got then targeting, tailoring your communication to your target audience. Let's now talk about when things get a little bit heated and you get a little bit frustrated and you're not quite sure what's going on and you don't feel like your message is getting through, but you need to get this message through. What do you do? What can you do? Well, if you're communicating an email and the email isn't working, set up a phone call, set up a time to talk to someone. Actually get on the phone, pick up the phone and have a chat to them. Or if you don't want to pick up the phone, set up a Zoom meeting, set up a webinar, set up a screen share so that you can actually get them to show you what's going on, or look at them in the eye and talk to them like they're a person, not just a piece of electronic communication. The other thing that I have found works really, really well is a buddy system. If I feel that I'm having trouble with my communications with people, I will often draft up something and then give it to one of my partners, one of my business support people, and say, does this make sense to you? Does it sound condescending? Does it sound like I care? Does it make sense overall? So they'll come back and ask me questions about what I've written, whether I meant something in a particular way. What did this particularly mean? And I'll be able to have a look at what I've said and go, maybe I could have said that better. Obviously, that's confusing. No, actually, I did mean that. That's okay. I also don't just use one buddy to check things out. I will actually send things out to a male and a female. Men communicate completely differently at times to females. We tend to use a lot of language. We tend to use a lot of words and a lot of emotive language. Men particularly like to be more direct. So I will send something to both a male and a female and say, what do you think? And give me your impression. That works really well. Now, it does slow things down a little, and you do need to be very disciplined at following through and saying, have you got some feedback for me, so that you're not delaying communicating back to your end stakeholder. But it does work really, really well. So there's a couple of hot tips for how you can use your systems to communicate better, not just which systems to use, but how you communicate. Have you worked out your communication style? What is the tone you want to set when you are communicating? Are you setting expectations with your stakeholders when you're communicating? Are you managing those expectations? And then once you've got all that sorted out, are you communicating in an appropriate way for your target audience and the target audience in every individual situation? Because it is a different situation for everyone. I hope that one's been useful for you this week. It's a little shorter than normal, but I hope that's been useful and helpful. I really would love to get some feedback on how this series is going for you. What do you want to hear me talk more about? What do you want to hear me not talk about? Remember to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss future episodes.